All right, guys, we are now live for another Thursday night conversations with Commodores. And I suspect most of y'all recognize my guest tonight. I'm sure so happy to have him over there as my guest this evening, a former teammate of mine, a mentor, a guy I really looked up to and played behind and basically carried his shoulder pads for a couple of years. Eric Jones, how you doing, bud? It's good to
Doing
see
well.
you.
Doing well. Glad to be on with you.
Well, I certainly am too. And guys, if you didn't get a chance to play with Eric back in the 80s or watch him do his thing, it was such a treat. And to be on the sidelines and to be in the quarterback huddles was one of the things that I really cherished about my time at Vanderbilt. And um, gosh, I'm just so glad that you're with us and gonna have a good little stroll tonight, Eric. So before we go back in the Wayback Machine, catch folks up about your family life and your work. Where are you? Just spend a minute or two and catch us up.
Yeah. So the reason why this took so long is I just recently moved from Birmingham back to the Atlanta area. That's been going on, and it's not the best time in the world to be moving anywhere nowadays. So I got two sons, Justin and Jason. One finished at Notre Dame, and he's out working now. And then my other son was going to University of Alabama, had sat out a year and was about to go back during this COVID. So he'll be going back probably in the spring at University of Alabama. And then my wife of 25 years, Renee,
Awesome.
and
Awesome.
yeah, and so that's been me for the time, and working ever since. Been in sales, and now I'm currently with a company called Neuronetics, and we sell a device, a brain stimulation device for patients with depression.
Well, thank you for catching us up, and I hope your son, who's at Bama, gets to go back at some point in the
Yeah,
future. And oh, all kind of love already for you, number 5, Patrick Fitch, Slaw Dog, OJ Fleming,
bitch.
TP, number 8,
The sloth.
D May, Derek May, Chris Griffin, and Corey Harris so far have rolled in.
TP. Oh, Corey Harris, what's up, man?
And guys, some of you may remember or may not, but Eric didn't start out at Vanderbilt. Started out in the Big Ten. Now, how does a fella from Decatur, Georgia, sitting in the SEC, first of all, escape the University of Georgia's backyard and make his way all the way up to Big Ten? What happened? What's that about?
Well, when I came out of high school at a pretty powerhouse Southwest DeKalb, which is we were really good team back in the day, and we had one of the top coaches and everything. And me and a buddy of mine who's been a friend of mine, Stanley Davenport, we've been friends since we were 10 years old. And I don't think we said that we were going to go to school together, but it was a thing where if a school was going to recruit both of us, it was kind of a package deal. So I was looking at schools like that anyway. I was recruited by UGA and Alabama and Tennessee, but I went to visit Duke, Vanderbilt, Michigan, Northwestern, and Georgia Tech. So he and I decided that we were going to be roommates and go up there. And Dennis Green was the coach at the time. And so at the time, that was a great place for both of us to go. It worked out for him. He ended up starting, actually being a running back there. And for me, I got there, and you don't mind competing, but when I got there, there were like 2 blue chip freshmen, and they had told me that I was the only guy in my class. So when I got there, I was behind the 8 ball. But Sandy Schwab, you heard of Charles Schwab? The investment. Yeah. Sandy Schwab was the quarterback, kind of took me under his wing. And I ended up just kind of thinking that, maybe I should go back to Vanderbilt. So Mickey Jacobs called me, and he kept calling me and saying, hey man, what did we do wrong? Did we do anything that we had changed the way we were recruiting and all that? And he called my mother. My mom, he had my mom. She loved him. So he had already talked to her, And she told me, she said, well, if you want to leave there, then give Coach Jacobs a call. So I did. And within 10 minutes, when I called him, he said, hold on a sec, just hold right there. Within 10 minutes, he was back on the phone and said, when you come home, you come straight to Vanderbilt instead of going back to Northwestern. So that was it. And ended up back at Vandy.
Eric, was that your freshman year that this all transpired?
Yeah, so I went there and I spent that first semester at Northwestern, and then I transferred, that January. And I think I was roommates with Boo at the time when I first came there. But I came in kind of early because, you go and you meet the chancellor, you do your physical and all that stuff. And I met Coach McIntyre and all that, Doc and all those guys. And then I went over and met the fellas, and it was, Boo and Joe and Tony and, all the guys were over at the dorm Branscombe. So that was my first, roll into Vanderbilt.
Now, Boo being from Valdosta or from Lowndes, sorry, Boo, if you're watching this, from Lowndes County, another powerhouse in Georgia. I know, I'm stepped in it there. Did you compete against Boo and Carl Parker back in the day? Did your schools play each other?
We didn't. We could have, though, because that year we did go to the playoffs. We were in the semifinals, and we lost to LaGrange, and I think they lost in the semifinals as well. And Tift County ended up beating LaGrange like 55-6 or 7 or something like that. But we would have met if we would have beat LaGrange, and they would have beaten. I guess it was Tift County. I don't know if they lost Tift County, or I think that's who it had to be. Then we would have played each other.
Oh, that could have been pretty cool. Now, how did your transferring affect your relationship and friendship with Davenport, with Stanley?
Well, it was fine. He and I already had talked about it, and he kind of knew that it wasn't working out for me. And Dennis, I went there. Dennis Green, I knew him. He was great. He recruited me and everything. But I just thought it was a better fit for me going back to Vanderbilt. And Mickey Jacobs made it just so much easier because I was a little worried. I was thinking, can I really go back there? Because I turned him down the first time. But I was going to either go to Michigan or go back there. But in Vanderbilt was closest to home, and it was just the best place for me.
And not like they have now with the transfer portal. Transferring was so different back then. Did you have to get Coach Green's permission or the athletic director at Northwestern?
Yeah, so I did. I had to get that permission, but they really didn't want me to leave. So I was in a meeting with the head coach, with Dennis Green, the guy that recruited me, the Coach Pay, and the athletic director, and they took me out, and they were really trying to get me to not leave, and I kind of had made up my mind. I was wanting to go back closer to home anyway, and you can't beat going to Vanderbilt. You're in the SEC and you're close to home, and you're at a high academic school as well. So I just thought it was just it was gonna happen. So I ended up getting that permission.
So you went through spring of '85, which would have been the spring of your freshman year at Vanderbilt. Right. And what position were they working you out? I know it was Coach Mack. I know that Mark Ratcher was the #1 quarterback coming back, but how did all that play out for you?
Yeah, so when I first got in, I was at quarterback, with Coach Mack, but he wasn't there long. I think we were working out that spring, and I think that's when all that went down. The stuff when the new coaching staff. But I was there in the spring. I was working out at quarterback, and of course, I was going to have to sit out the next year anyway. Mm-hmm. They had me working out at quarterback mostly, but I was at DB, receiver, and all the different positions, because they figured they use me as an athlete because.
Well, side note, guys, if you didn't see Eric play, the man was an athlete, and I suspect he still is. Go ahead, Eric.
Well, that next year, so I had to sit out that next year, but when we came back that next year, Watson Brown came to me and said that, he said, well, I'm going to let you go back to quarterback in the spring, but you're going to, I'm going to want to use you at wide receiver, or, it's kind of tight end, that, that wide position we used to have kind of in the slot, and you'd go in motion for running plays, and, you go out and do little, option routes. So many people may not know, but I have 2 catches in the SEC.
Whole lot more completions and throws, but 2 catches as well.
That's right.
And so, Eric, that would have been your sophomore year. That would have been the fall of '86. And that's when I would have met you, because I came in with the class of '86, which included Andy McCarroll, who's just now watching us. Thank you, Andy, for tuning in. And
Andy.
Tyler Unzicker has joined us. Thank you, Tyler. And of course, we're talking with number 5, Showtime, Eric Jones. And the fall of '86, Mark Ratcher was the starting quarterback. And I got to say, when we went to Alabama, that first game in, I think it was in Tuscaloosa? I know it was in the state of Alabama. I'm pretty sure it was in Tuscaloosa. I've never seen a quarterback take more punishment than Ratcher did. And no offense to Mike McDonald, Casper, but when you've got to defend a future all SEC, a future all pro lineman, a defensive lineman, nobody's going to get in Derek Thomas's way. He's going to do what he was going to do. And Ratcher just got so beat up that game. That wasn't a good game, but I want to ask you, from your perspective, did you get to play in that game? Was that your first SEC competition? Do you remember anything about that?
Yeah, I actually did play at receiver. I had to try to block Cornelius Bennett, and going from quarterback trying to block Cornelius Bennett. So that's as funny as it sounds. But yeah, that was probably, I think that was the first time I got on the field as a receiver.
Well, did you have any family members come over for that game? What was it? I know you were used to being in front of big crowds. I know that wasn't an issue, but now you're in the SEC, and now you're playing for a team closer to home. You're in the best conference. We're playing one of the best teams, and you're out there doing your thing, not at quarterback, but you're on the field and you're playing. What was that like for you?
Well, I was thinking that I was going to be back at quarterback, but yeah, I was happy to be out on the field, to be playing in the SEC, playing close to home. And yes, that now my family could come watch me play. They could see me, playing on TV on the TBS games or from back home. And yeah, for me, I thought that if I could just, hang in there and get back at quarterback, I was, that would be where I needed to be. I didn't think I'd have much success at wide receiver or slot back that I was playing.
Well, Eric, how do I put this? Was it tough for you to stay mentally focused? Were you positive, or did you get frustrated during the year when maybe you saw things from the quarterback position that you knew you could do a little better, or thought that you should be contributing, but you were still playing that other position that Coach Brown needed you to play?
I have to be honest. I wasn't happy that I had to, go and play receiver at all from the beginning. But, once I start doing it, I'm going to be 100%. Once I'm on the field, I'm going to try to score. I'm going to try to do whatever I can do. And I, believe that I would get a shot, at some point, and which eventually I did. But yeah, I mean, I can't lie. It was frustrating to be playing receiver, and I transferred, because I wanted to go play quarterback at Vanderbilt. So, but I never gave up hope that I would get a chance to play. I felt like if I had a chance to compete, I'd have a chance to play.
That first year with you playing wide receiver or the different slot and receiver positions, it seems like that was such a great time for you to really bond with some of your buddies, lifelong friends now, Boo and TP and those guys. And here's my question: is running routes with them, learning the position I assume from those guys, and just perfecting that craft, that had to have helped a little bit, being in the huddle and being on the same positions with those guys, as opposed to you not being friends with other receivers coming in and having to form those friendships as you went along.
Yeah, well, those guys were my friends, back at the dorm, on the field and everything. And, as a quarterback, I kind of, it was kind of easy for me to learn another position because I knew what everyone was supposed to do all the time anyway. So for me, it was just, do the best I possibly can, impress the coaches, try to be a star at whatever I'm playing at, but knowing in the back of my mind that my best chance at success in college would be at quarterback.
Well, let's take it to the spring of your sophomore year. We're now into the spring of '87. Ratcher's gone, but you had to face the likes of this guy, plus Tim Richardson, plus John Gromos, plus Tom Gray. I think Smuggs had already graduated by then. It was a crowded field, but you're going into that spring and talk about your mindset, because now you're switching back to your natural position. You're getting a chance to compete and hopefully start in the fall. What was going on with you then?
Yeah, now when I had an opportunity, I jumped on it. So that spring, I remember getting a chance to go back and show what I could do. And the offense was perfect for me. I could, of course, I like throwing the ball as well. But I thought that the way, Watson called plays and the way that he utilized me, back there, I think, it allowed me to succeed at everything that I could do. So it stretched me. Coming out of high school, I had the second most passing yards in the history of Georgia high school football at the time. So I knew I could pass the ball, but at the time in his offense, it kept the defense honest to have me on the move, a lot as well. So I took a lot of hits, of course, in the option, but the great thing was that he would allow me to spread out, and we would, we go pro set one play, and then we'd be back in the bone, and then we'd go, 3 wides, 2 wides to one side, 1 to the other, so you really didn't know what we were going to do. I thought he was an offensive genius, so it helped.
Yeah, guys, back then the playbook was actually a real notebook, and that sucker was 3 or 4 inches. And I remember getting mine as a freshman thinking, how? There is no way I can learn all of this in such a short period of time. But you pick it up, your reps, you're watching, you're doing it. But in the '80s, gosh, we go from Witt to Kurt. I mean, all these records. Awesome receivers, lots of air, lots of completion, and lots of yardage by all of those great quarterbacks and receivers. And now we get into the fall of '87, and you're running the show. You run the show so much that I think you led the SEC in yardage, if I'm correct, and maybe some other categories. But take us into that fall, and you're now what we now call QB1, you're the man. So what's going on in your mind, and what's going on with you academically? Are you able to keep up with what's going on in the classroom at the same time?
Yeah, well, that's stuff for all of us. We in order to put in the kind of work you need to put on the field and still do well enough in school was a tough thing for all of us. So we were able to at least survive. But on the field, I felt like we could score on anybody. You had Carl Parker, we had Boo Mitchell, Tony, the speed, going down the middle of the field and up the sidelines, Everett Crawford, Rodney Barrett. I think we had enough weapons to score on anybody, and we pretty much did. We jumped out on Auburn that year, I think, in a year where they probably every SEC defense at that time was somewhere, probably most of them were in the top 20 in the country, and so as well as we did against those defenses, I've just always felt like we could do, we could move the ball on anyone.
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree with you. And guys, we're talking with Eric Jones, and a whole bunch more folks have jumped in, Eric, who I want to give some shout outs to. One of the Keystone Cops, one of the beloved policemen who were part of our program, Billy Smith, is with us tonight. Hey, Billy. Ed Zorbrowski is with us. Brian Josie. Jim Arnold is watching with us. Louis Woolridge. Heidi Gray Breeding. Oh, One Donut. Mike Healy has jumped on board. Hey, Mike. Coach Gary Shepard is with us. And TP's got some trash talk for you, Eric. After 30 years, it's about time we come clean on what happened to the championship deck of Ritz-Carlton cards.
Oh man, that's crazy.
You're talking about being your spades partner for 4 years. Oh, some awesome stuff. And I'll send that to you.
That's funny. That's inside. That's an inside.
That's all good
With
stuff.
Boo, Joe, and Tony, they all know what he's talking about.
Well, Eric, from the success of '87 that you personally had, your stats, and becoming one of the leading quarterbacks in the conference, the school decides that they want to now promote you for a Heisman campaign called Showtime in the fall of '88. And I will never forget the photo shoot that you had, the awesome poster, and just all the hype that started. Because frankly, even though I was just, part of the group and part of the team, and then had the pleasure of being in those rooms and getting abused by you and Gromos most days, that was, it was a fun time back then. Um, Take us into that when the SID or whoever came to you and said, Eric, here's what we're thinking, or did they even come to you before they started it?
Yeah, Watson came to me and he said, hey, this is what we're going to do. He approved of it. And, I appreciated it. I thought that it was something that I never worried about, people being a target or anything like that. I just appreciated that, we had a really good year. We had a good offense. I'd done well. And I thought it brought, a lot of excitement to the team. We had a really good offense. And I thought also going into the next year, with Boo and Tony still with me, we had lost Everett and Carl Parker, which are big losses. But with Boo and Tony still with me, I thought that, we still could go in and do really well. And I think we needed anything like that at Vanderbilt to just kind of, keep the excitement up, keep the fans involved, and we always threw the ball around. So I was excited about it.
It was an exciting time. We may not have had the best records, but there were some excellent wins in there. Most notably, how about the Florida game? Take us to that game. That was a fantastic memory right there.
Yeah, that was probably the best memory I've had as far as our seasons there at Vanderbilt. We were down. I think we were on the 2-yard line, which was a play that we had Kasanovich, the touchdown in the end zone. We called timeout. We came to the ball, and what I was worried about is we were, Watson wanted me to fake twice. He wanted me to fake, and then fake again, and they were going to jump over and fake like he had it, and then I had to get the ball up and throw to my left. And so, in practice, you think about it and you go, oh man, if I get in the game, am I going to be able to do that? But in the game, we just did it, and it was natural. But it was a great catch by Kasanovich. He caught the ball, and after plays like that, you feel like that's the kind of stuff that lets you know that we're probably going to pull through in this game. So
yeah, and that was
defense played well.
But
that's a play I've done.
They really did. Let's take it away from that game. Any other games in your final 2 seasons at Vanderbilt that, good or bad, on the field, off the field? I can tell you while you're thinking about that, some of my most fondest memories were in the locker room, either before or after practices, and hearing you guys cutting up and having fun and laughing at whatever it was. It didn't matter what it was, you guys had a lot of fun. And that fed onto a lot of other guys. It was contagious. And yeah, emotions went up and down all the time. You're a college guy and you're playing football. But what I most remember is a lot of laughter, a lot of fun times. And a lot of times it's you and Boo cutting up about something. So
well, with Boo around, everyone's gonna be laughing all the time. So he was always up to something, and he kept it going in the locker room. And those guys, those are my guys, man. Those are my boys forever. Boo, Joe, Tony, and Everett, and we'd always find something to laugh about. Hang out and have fun. So yeah, it came into the locker room, but then yeah, I think it did help on the field as well too. We were out there for each other, and of course we would have loved to won a lot more games, but I love playing with my fellas and all my friends, and I still believe that our offense. I think we got out there and we performed above our heads a lot of times, and it was because we had a lot of smart guys. We had guys that were good players and they're really smart and they executed.
Well, let's talk to us a little bit about the influence or the impact of fraternity life for you while you were at Vanderbilt. I know that was important for you as well.
Yeah, so for a long time at Vandy, guys had been trying to start up Kappa Alpha Psi, and so I'd heard that from a lot of the former athletes and guys on campus, and so at one point, Sandy Stahl, who was the associate dean of students, and she was the person you had to talk to do something like that, and then I had to match her up with some of the administrators over at Tennessee State. And what we were able to do is get a petition. We had hundreds of people petition all over the campus to have, to get Kappa Alpha Psi on campus. She gave us the go ahead, and we had our first line pledged at Tennessee State, and they're Alpha Theta, and so we were a colony initially, an Alpha Theta colony, and then from there, once we pledged and we crossed, over. In 1986 and 89, we got our chart, went over to Vanderbilt and got our charter. So we were Alpha Theta Colony all the way until 89, and then we got our charter to be New Row, Kappa Alpha Psi New Row. And guys like Corey Harris and Derek Gregg and all those guys, I mean, they took it to new heights, and even the guys now. But yeah, that was very important to me. It kept a lot of us guys, connected to not only football team, but a lot of the, other guys on campus as well.
Absolutely. I want to welcome, a few guys have just rolled in. Eugene Keenan, who played with us back in the day, from Pennsauken, New Jersey. I just remember that. Chris Griffin, who played in the 2009-10 time period and is currently the president, or the director, I should say, of the Black and Gold Club, which is trying to connect all the former athletes back with the schools so they can form this database and this network of mentorships, internships, and job opportunities for current student athletes as they come out. So thank you, Chris. And Healy says, who knocked down my cone was what his question. Good to see you, EJ. That's all. I totally forgot about that. That's great.
Healy.
Well, Eric, it was Van Heflin, I believe, y'all correct me if I'm wrong, I think was the first African-American quarterback at Vanderbilt. And if memory serves, you might have been the second. I could be wrong, guys, so please correct me. Did that ever enter your mind? The fact that just being an African-American quarterback, not just at Vanderbilt, a predominantly white school, in all fairness, and being in the SEC, was that important to you back then? Did that register with you and your family and your friends?
Yeah, well, I knew I had the skills to play the position. I'd done really well in high school, and I always imagined myself being able to come out and do well in college wherever I went. So it was important to me to see that that I would get an opportunity to play. That was the big thing for me, and so once I got the opportunity, then it was I knew that I could take it and run with it from there. But at the time, you had Rodney Peete and Steve Taylor and those guys, and I'd always keep up with them, Tony Rice, and I wanted all of us to do well, because anyone doing well, all makes all the boats rise. So it helped to have those guys doing well and me doing well, and I think those days started started Black quarterbacks to be looked at as just a quarterback, whether they well performing, they could throw the ball, run the ball, do whatever it is you need to do at quarterback, read defenses and do it, and compete and be successful. So yeah, it was important to me that I got the opportunity.
Sadly, back in the 80s, guys, that was an issue, and it remained an issue for several decades. It's clearly not an issue now. But speaking of Rodney Peete, you later ended up being one of his teammates later on, if I'm correct, maybe with Detroit. Is that right?
Yeah, it was. I ended up on the practice squad with them at the time. Rodney Peete, Bob Galliano was there, Chuck Long. They were all the quarterbacks at the time, if you remember, from Iowa.
Mhm.
And so yeah, I went to Canada initially first, and we went to the playoffs. And by the time that season was over, because it started in May, I got a call from June Jones, who knew me from high school, and I actually went to a camp with him, and he called me, and I got a workout with him and ended up getting onto the team, and I was got on their practice squad. So I finished out that year, and then came back the next year, and I was released in camp. They drafted Andre Ware. You remember him? He threw for like 1,000,000 yards, his senior season. And from there, he came on, and they let me go.
Well, you ended up, I know, Eric, after Vanderbilt, you ended up playing in a few different professional leagues. You landed here in Birmingham for a time. What, I guess I should ask it this way. Each of those experiences, I'm sure, were different from the other, but there were a lot of commonalities as well, being a professional athlete. And that's what I want to focus for just a minute or two, is the difference between a college athlete, albeit one who was with honors and well recognized, playing in the top conference, but going from that to being a professional athlete is a big jump. And I want you to share a little bit of that experience about that jump, what the difference was.
Yeah, of course, playing in the SEC is prepares you a good bit, but the thing about the pros is that guy that you're trying to stay away from, that you're trying not to throw to, that you're trying to you're building your offense to avoid. All of those guys are out there, in the NFL. And so when I, even in Canada, I went there, you got to let the ball go on time. You have to read quick. And yeah, and what a lot of people don't know is that it's an all day thing too. You come in early in the morning, and you have meetings, and you're working out, and you eat lunch there, and then you have more meetings, and I'm sure Corey can tell you. And then you go out later in the afternoon. You might go out twice, to practice. You work out again and come back, and then you watch film, and you might be there in the morning from 7 a.m., 6:30, 7 a.m. to 8, 9 o'clock at night. So it's you definitely have to work on your craft, and you have all the best guys in the world out there doing that too, that you got to compete with.
Yeah, it seems like you go from high school, you're a big fish in a little pond. In the SEC, you're a little bit smaller fish in a much bigger pond. And then you get into any of the pro leagues, you're a real small fish in a big pond. And you gotta, I get it. Everybody is as good as everybody else. And the margin for error, I'm sure, is smaller and smaller. But Eric, after a few years of different professional leagues, when did you decide that really it was time to hang it up and move on to the next phase in life? And how tough was that, recognizing that, yeah, I may only be about 29 or however old you were, but it's time. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so once you reach that point, it. So after I played in the World League that second year, first of all, that after that second year, it was over. They stopped for about 3 or 4 years, and they came back as NFL Europe. I don't know if you remember. And I did get a call then, but it was, I'd been working already, and I wasn't going to try, go back at that time. But it's, once that hits you, it's tough. It's, you've been doing it since you were 6, 7 years old playing ball. And it's the one thing that, you can retire from in your 20s, So when I finished, I was like, well, I got to get a real job. But I also knew that I was prepared for that as well, going to Vanderbilt.
Well, that's what I was going to ask you. Did you use your degree for what you ultimately first started doing from a job wise?
Well, I was economics major, and in school I had gotten that the Procter and Gamble internship, so I did that. So I knew that I kind of thought I wanted to be in sales, and once you do that and you get the feeling of closing business in sales, then it's kind of like scoring a touchdown. So that was good for me, and from there I went on to work in sales positions until now. I started back then. I've been in sales ever since.
Very good. Well, Eric, I want to go back. I appreciate you sharing your journey with us. Some good stuff. And we got so many more folks are rolling in. We got Kenny Cole, who's from Huntsville area. Oh, we got Derek Gragg has just joined us. Good to see you, Derek. Harlow Dodge
Gragg.
pulled in. Yeah, we're gonna get D Gragg on here one of these weeks. He's now with the NCAA. He's got a big job. But
Yeah, he is.
Eric, I want to take you back to campus, and I always ask this of everybody: is away from the field and away from your football responsibilities, what were some of the places on or off campus you like to hang out? I know that playing cards with the fellows was a lot of fun for you, but take us to some of those favorite spots where you just could, let your hair down a little bit, so to speak.
Yeah. Well, when we started, once our pledge cap outside, we'd have these parties at the Dome. That, and of course the steroid parties that we had at the
Wait, you got to explain what that means.
Oh yeah, maybe guys
were there.
We weren't doing steroids, but at the time we had these parties that were called steroid parties that were in the towers, and those were the best. And then towards the end, after our pledge, the Dome used to allow us to go in there and have big parties there as well. And I was, I think you and I talked before about, places to go eat and all that kind of stuff. So, we'd go to the cooker. That was something that, I try to go there as much as I could when we had that per diem.
Mm-hmm.
But other than that, I go to Tennessee State, go to Fisk, and hang out over there as well.
All right, I got a comment or two about the steroid parties. Some of my favorite memories of those were after the Saturday night home basketball games, and we will have just won a big game most of the time. Those guys were so good back then. But I want to say it was either Jeff Mays or somebody who had the big boom system. And it didn't matter what floor it was on, you could hear it throughout the entire tower. You could hear it for most of the campus. But there was a lot of people on those floors, and it was just everybody having a good time. It was fun.
Yeah, I think Jeff Mays was the DJ,
Mm-hmm.
and I can't remember if maybe Stump was too. I can't remember if Stump was one of the DJs as well. But yeah.
TP wants to know who flooded the third floor during one of those parties. Now, the statute of limitations is long gone, and the tower is going to be torn down if it isn't already. So you can spill it if you know, Eric.
No, I don't know, but I do remember.
Yeah, I think we all do. And Andy Mack wants to talk about the Tennessee game in '87. And if I remember correctly, that was the game we were up 28-3 at halftime. Billy Cunningham had intercepted Jeff Francis and took it back to the house as one of the scores, but ultimately we didn't do so well in the second half. You remember that game?
Oh yeah, I do. I remember in the first. Yeah, I think we were up. I can't remember. It was 28-3 in the first half. I thought, or it might have been 21-3 in the first half. But yeah, at one point we were 28-3.
I remember.
Yeah, 28-3, and then I think I remember the kickoff right after that. I think we muffed the kickoff. They got the ball, they scored, and then after that, you couldn't hear yourself think. I mean, at Tennessee, there were 100,000 fans in there, and once they started scoring, it was hard to hear. I'll never forget the time that they were scoring and we got the ball back, and they start screaming, and I'm looking around, we could barely hear each other. I'm trying to scream everything out, and the referee tells me, hey, just go when you want. I can't hear either. And so we just went on with the plays, and eventually I think we almost had a chance to come back at the end. I think when they went up, we had a chance to come back at the end, and we weren't able to.
Yeah, it was a 38-36 loss, I believe. And Eric, what I remember, because the stadium in Neyland is so vertical, it's not spread out like a lot of the stadiums used to be. It's quite vertical. So the upper deck is just right there on top of you. I remember leaving the field at the end of the game and having to put our helmets on because bottles and batteries were being thrown, raining down.
Yeah, they told us to put our helmets on. I remember.
Yeah, and I just remember that being the biggest collapse. I really thought we were going to win that game, and it just wasn't meant to be for that game. But that had to have been the loudest that I remember playing or being on the sidelines for a game.
Yeah, I don't like thinking of that one too much. That one hurt. I think it was the last game of the season, and we were going to be losing Carl Parker and Everett too at that time.
That's right. That's some of those guys were such key contributors, such solid fellas on and off the field, and fabulous athletes. You're right. You're exactly right. Some big weapons, but then along came Andy Mack for a little while in the backfield, and Brad Gaines in the backfield. But Brad kind of played that flex position. He could do really just about anything except be the speed burner on the outside. But gosh, some fun memories from them.
Yeah, we lost Daryl Hope too that year, and he's my center.
Mm-hmm.
And boy, I tell you what, that might be one of the toughest people on the planet. That guy, he was probably the tough, and all the guys know Daryl Hope. It didn't matter how much bigger or stronger that other person across the line thought they were. He was the toughest. I think he could block anybody.
Mm-hmm. DJ got a name from the past, from Manhattan, New York. Henry Beelan has just joined us. Hey, Henry, good to see you, bud.
Henry Beelan, what's up, man?
I had the pleasure of doing one of those Zoom watch parties for one of the Vanderbilt games earlier this year. So I got to catch up with Henry, and it was so good to see him and chat with him during one of the halves of the game. And he's doing quite well. Well, my friend, we're getting close to the end of our discussion, and I sure have enjoyed hearing what your story is all about. But you hadn't loosened up. This is not all of Eric Jones that I remember. Now, it was a much younger Eric Jones. That was over 30 years ago. But now you're going to tell us some stories that you've been holding back that it's okay to share, that bring a smile to your face. I'm not trying to embarrass anybody, but as much as you were laughing and smiling and have a good time most of the time that we were in school, I know you got a couple of stories that you want to share with us.
Oh, man. Well, the guys, that's thing about the cards. Okay, so we used to have a spades. I guess I wouldn't even call it a tournament, but it was just. I mean, we were highly competitive, man. So it'd be me and Tony against Boo and Joe, and for some, every single time we played, it'd be close and we'd be playing, and the team that was winning, they'd either, they'd win and then they'd run down the hallway laughing, and just giving it to us. So the thing about those cards, they disappeared, and they disappeared, and it was a deck of, supposedly really nice cards, and they disappeared. And we were supposed to play one more hand, and Tony will probably help me with it. I think we were supposed to play one more hand, and they disappeared, and me and Tony just walked away and said, well, man, if they're gone, we can't play anymore. And so they say that we stole them, and that, that was the problem is that, we were going to lose, so we stole them and got rid of them. But, who knows, it may or may not have happened. I don't know.
Henry remembers a poster board with all the matchups, like a schedule or who was going to be playing who next in spades. Do you remember that?
Oh yeah. Well, we did have a tournament. That one thing that we're talking about is that so Boo and Joe thought that Tony and I must have because they may have been winning, and they may have been about to to beat us in the tournament, and they disappeared somehow, and they accused me and Tony. I don't know what happened. So
hey, if there's no video of it, if there's no video or photographic evidence, it never occurred. Well, Eric, thank you for sharing. Thank you for sharing your story, and it's so good to catch up with you, my friend. So thank you.
Hey, thank you for having me on, man. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. And guys, as I try to do every Thursday, conversations with Commodores, we've got them all lined up into December. We're going to keep going as long as those guys, if folks want to come on and have a discussion with me. So I hope you guys are being safe, have a fun and safe Halloween coming up, and we will catch you again next Thursday. Anchor down.
All right.